Golf just got hit by a scandal it didn't see coming, and the shockwaves from it are reaching places the sport never expected. The broadcast booth, the corporate suites, the lawyers who wrote the television contracts that keep professional golf financially alive. Because what happened on July 29, 2026, when the PGA Tour announced a doping violation that sent golf media into overdrive, isn't just a player story. It isn't just a disciplinary case. It's a question about the sport's integrity at its deepest commercial level.
Trey Mullinax, a PGA Tour winner, 6 months, WADA-prohibited substance, and the first positive doping test in this sport in almost 3 years. That's what exploded. That's what the tour is managing right now. And that's what CBS, the network that holds the Masters, the PGA Championship, and the entire FedEx Cup playoffs broadcast relationship, cannot afford to ignore.
Let's go straight to the facts, because in a story like this, the facts matter more than the drama around them. July 29, 2026. The PGA Tour announces that Trey Mullinax, 34 years old, 2022 Barbasol Championship winner, has been suspended for 6 months for violating the tour's anti-doping policy. He tested positive for a substance prohibited by the World Anti-Doping Agency. He is ineligible to return until January 16, 2027, well past the close of the 2026.
Mullinax's own statement, provided through the tour, is the most important document in this entire story. Read it carefully. My lack of knowledge is not an excuse. It was my responsibility to know the rules before taking any medication, and I failed to do so. I want to be absolutely clear. I have never taken any substance with the intention of gaining a competitive advantage. Anyone who knows me knows how much I respect this game and the values it represents. 2 sentences define everything. I take full responsibility. I never intended to cheat.
Here's the full picture of who Mullinax is, because context is everything in a doping case. He's not a tour star. He's not a household name outside the sport's most dedicated followers. He turned professional in 2013, spent years grinding through the Korn Ferry Tour, including a stint where a convergence insufficiency eye injury derailed what looked like a promising career trajectory in 2019. He fought back, won at the Korn Ferry level, earned his card, won the Barbasol Championship in 2022, his only PGA Tour title, and has been operating in the tour's mid-tier ever since.
By 2026, he was playing on conditional status. He'd finished 150th in the FedEx Cup standings in 2025. He played only 3 events in the spring of 2026, 2 on the PGA Tour, 1 on the Korn Ferry Tour, missing every cut. His last appearance was the Zurich Classic of New Orleans in April. Then nothing, until the announcement in July that explained the silence. He told the tour he'd been taking a medication for a condition first.
He is believed to be the 9th player suspended since the PGA Tour began drug testing in 2008, and the first since Byung-Hun An in October 2023, when An tested positive for a substance in an over-the-counter cough syrup in South Korea that happened to contain a banned ingredient. 9 suspensions, 18 years of testing, a rate so low it barely registers as a pattern. And yet, the 9th case, in the middle of the most turbulent, scrutinized, commercially fragile period in professional golf's modern history, has landed with the impact of a stone through a glass window.
Here's where the CBS broadcast relationship enters the story, and this is the part that makes this more than a routine disciplinary announcement. The PGA Tour's current television deal with CBS and NBC runs through 2030. The financial structure of that deal hasn't been publicly disclosed in its full detail, but industry analysts have estimated the combined CBS-NBC Golf Channel arrangement at somewhere in the range of $1 to $2 billion over its contract period. CBS specifically holds the most premium inventory: the Masters, the PGA Championship, and the FedEx Cup playoffs, the tour's most commercially valuable broadcasts.
Here's what that relationship is built on. The PGA Tour has spent decades positioning itself as professional sports' cleanest institutional brand.
Players call penalties on themselves. The culture of integrity is genuine and deep. When the PGA Tour built its anti-live argument in 2022 and 2023,
CBS didn't just buy golf broadcast rights. It bought a brand, a specific, clearly defined cultural brand that its announcers, its production team, its advertising partners, and its Tuesday night news cycles are built around. Jim Nance's reverent whisper at Augusta National, the green jacket ceremony, the Sunday afternoon gravitas of a major championship deciding moment. And 2026 has already been a year of broadcast turbulence for CBS Golf specifically. Jim Nance, the man whose voice has defined CBS Golf for decades, the announcer whose name is synonymous with the Masters broadcast experience, is 66 years old and in the final years of a career that has already produced more iconic golf moments than any broadcaster in the sport's history. The post-Nance transition planning at CBS is real, deliberate, and ongoing. The network has made moves, Johnson Wagner joining from Golf Channel, new on.
At the same time, the Tour handed NBC the Travelers Championship in 2026. A 19-year CBS run ended not because CBS wanted out, but because NBC needed inventory after the Century's Hawaii cancellation. The schedule reshuffling was clean commercially, but it was a visible reminder that the broadcast ecosystem surrounding the Tour is in active transition. Partners are shifting, schedules are adjusting. The long, stable relationship between CBS and the PGA Tour's most prestigious events.
What happens to that brand when the headline reads, PGA Tour suspends player for doping violation? Let's be precise about what CBS actually said, because the answer, so far, is nothing publicly. No statement, no press release, no Jim Nance quote about the network reassessing its relationship with professional golf. The CBS threatens to cancel framing has been circulating through golf social media since the Mullinax announcement, amplified by fans, pundits, and content creators who understand that the intersection of doping and broadcast contracts is where this story's biggest stakes lie. But the commercial reality underneath that framing is genuine, not because CBS is walking, but because the Tour's partners are always watching, always calculating, always measuring.
In 2022, when Live Golf launched, the broadcast narrative was straightforward. The PGA Tour was the legitimate circuit, Live was the rebel league. CBS stayed loyal to the establishment, maintained its programming schedule, and let the Tour's institutional integrity be the headline argument. But institutional integrity arguments only work if the institution is actually clean. And the Mullinax case, even with his full acceptance of responsibility.
Here's the comparison that makes that question so uncomfortable. The PGA Tour's anti-doping program is, by the standards of professional sport, remarkably opaque. The Tour does not disclose which substances players test positive for. It does not reveal the circumstances of the positive test. It does not explain whether the detection came from in-competition or out-of-competition testing. 9 suspensions in 18 years is either a remarkable record of clean competition or a remarkable record of infrequent testing. The Tour's testing program has historically been criticized by sports integrity advocates as less rigorous than Olympic or World Anti-Doping Agency standards in other sports.
In a sport that prides itself on complete transparency, where players announce their own penalties, where the rules committee's decisions are posted publicly, where integrity is the fundamental marketing proposition, the opacity around doping enforcement is a jarring inconsistency. Golf Digest went further than the Tour's statement. Reporters pushed for the substance, pushed for the testing circumstances, got nothing. The Tour declined to provide additional detail, and that silence, in a sport defined by transparency, created exactly the kind of information vacuum that speculation floods into.
Now, let's talk about the broadcast context that makes the timing of this case genuinely damaging. The Mullinax announcement dropped on July 29th, the same week the Rocket Classic was being played in Detroit for the last time. The same week, the tour was simultaneously managing Wyndham Hotel's exit from its 20-year sponsorship. This same week, Live Golf's final 3 events were beginning at Trump Bedminster, with players running emergency meetings about their league's survival. Every golf news cycle in that week was already pulled.
CBS picks up the FedEx Cup playoffs this year. The first time CBS has had the playoffs in its every other year rotation since the structure changed. The Tour Championship at the end of August, the biggest prize in professional golf's regular season, all going through the network that has built its golf identity around integrity, tradition, and the kind of dignified presentation that the Masters represents at its most polished. And in the weeks leading into that broadcast, the news cycle includes a doping suspension.
Here's the piece of this story that nobody in the golf establishment wants written down, but everyone in the sport is thinking: the LIV golf angle. In 2022, when the PGA Tour went to war with LIV Golf, one of the arguments that surfaced repeatedly in the institutional criticism of the Rebel League was LIV doesn't test its players adequately. LIV doesn't have the infrastructure, the accountability, the WADA-aligned protocols that the PGA Tour has built over 18 years of formal anti-doping enforcement. The PGA Tour used that contrast, not explicitly, not in formal press releases, but in the subtext of every integrity conversation for 4 years. We test, they don't. We're serious about this, they aren't. And now, the PGA Tour's own testing program has produced a positive, the 9th in 18 years, the first in 3 years, from a player on conditional status who used a medication for a college. But the PGA Tour told, and in telling, it created the comparison. 9 suspensions in 18 years, with the testing program that's supposed to be the gold standard in professional golf. Live Golf, 0 suspensions in 4 years, with a testing program nobody has audited publicly. Which number looks more trustworthy to a CBS executive writing a broadcast contract? Which number looks more trustworthy to a corporate advertising partner spending $20 million to associate their brand with golf's integrity narrative? The answer is not as obvious as it should be. And here's what the tour is doing right now that most people aren't reporting. The PGA Tour revised its anti-doping program manual in January 2026, a revised manual at the start of the season, before any positive test was publicly announced, before Mullinax's case became public record. That timing is notable. You don't revise an anti-doping manual in January unless you're either responding to something that happened or anticipating something that's coming. The tour updated its procedures, Here's the part that matters most for CBS, for NBC, for Golf Channel, and for every commercial partner that has written a check to the PGA Tour since 2022. The anti-doping issue in golf isn't Trey Mullinax. Mullinax is a mid-tier player on conditional status who took a medication for a college-era condition without understanding the exemption requirements. His case is, by every available indicator, exactly what he says it is: an honest mistake, an administrative failure, not intentional performance enhancement. The issue is the question his case opens. What about the players we don't know about? What about the high-profile names who've never been tested publicly? What about the gap between the tour's self-reported testing frequency and
The Bryson DeChambeau body transformation story, which ran for years through the mid-2010s as he went from average-build golfer to the most muscle-dominant player on tour, was never accompanied by a positive doping test. He was clean. He has maintained that consistently. But the story existed. The questions were asked. The speculation circulated. Golf's integrity narrative has always been tested at the edges by the human tendency to wonder about exceptional physical performances. Tiger Woods, who chaired the committee that designed golf's future this year, came back from his DUI arrest in March with 2 pills found in his pocket. The PGA Tour supported him, said nothing further. The tour's statement focused on his health and well-being, not on whether pharmaceutical substances in a car crash scene raised questions about what was in his system that Friday afternoon in Jupiter Island.
The tour has managed these narratives carefully, deliberately, with the kind of institutional communication discipline that a billion-dollar broadcast relationship requires. But the Mullinax case, the 9th positive test in 18 years, the first in almost 3, breaks the surface of that management at exactly the wrong moment, in exactly the wrong season, with exactly the wrong commercial backdrop. Here's where this lands. Trey Mullinax will return to competition on January 16, 2027. He'll report to Q School, or whatever pathway his conditional status makes available. He'll try to rebuild a career that was already fragile before the positive test made it genuinely precarious. The PGA Tour will move forward with the FedEx Cup playoffs on CBS. Jim Nantz will be in the booth. The green jacket tradition and the Tour Championship trophy will be handled with the usual reverence. The broadcast deal runs through 2030. No one is actually canceling anything.
And he has to do all of that while managing the ongoing Tiger Woods narrative, while navigating LIV's collapse and its implications for player returns, while replacing the sponsors leaving the non-signature schedule, while keeping Scottie Scheffler engaged, happy, and available to play the hometown tournament in Dallas that may or may not make the championship series cut. Here's the historical parallel that makes all of this resonate even deeper. In late 2023, Rory McIlroy, the man who'd been the PGA Tour's most visible champion against LIV, the player who'd sacrificed enormous personal bandwidth arguing for the establishment on CNN, in press tents, and in boardrooms across the world, quietly resigned from the PGA Tour Policy Board. His reason was entirely human and completely understandable. Golf, family, investment portfolio, TGL. Something had to give. He stepped off the board, he got back to being a golfer, and within 18 months, he won the Masters, completed the career Grand Slam, and became golf's undisputed active legend.